Hello and welcome back on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new here, hi, my name is Cece. Thanks for joining me. We are looking at the second half of my monthly wrap-up. I am reading too many books for one long wrap-up. The videos would get way too long, and I think that this one is a really long one as well because I read a couple of books in the second half of February and I'm excited, and you should be too because there's a few really good ones. So let's see if my prediction of the first sentence matched up with the rating. If you don't know what that is, at the beginning of the month I read the first sentence of each book on my TBR and try to guess what rating I will give that book. If you want to watch the whole video, it's probably linked somewhere either up there or down there, and you can hear what my ideas were and why I predicted that rating. And now let's get to resolving the mystery and see what rating I actually gave. So let's go. I finished The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. This book was a big surprise for me. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, where I thought when I picked it up that this would probably be something like more of a 2, maybe 3 out of 5 stars. I picked it up for the Curl Up Book Club that is hosted by Jen Im, and you can find that on her Instagram, linked below. And I've really enjoyed the past 2 months picks, and I enjoyed the Zoom meeting discussions so much, so I really wanted to pick up this month. And then it also came along as a book club pick in an internal work-related book club, and I was like, okay, I'm not interested in reading this. I mean, look at the cover. It just screams love and romance that it just felt cheesy and potentially not worth it. But it surprised me. This book is really well written in a way that I felt like I was captivated for some reason throughout the whole time, as if I was reading fiction, even though there was no fiction about it. The sample cases that Gary Chapman chooses to talk about are on point, explain the situation well, explain the theory well, but it doesn't go overboard. I also felt like the theories are explained enough, but it's not going too far and stretching it out too long. I do think that some of the chapters could have been reduced a little bit, and that some of the points he was making over and over and over. But then again, I also do realize that some people need this to be done over and over to actually acknowledge the thought processes and to just process what's written. So I do understand that technique. I also do believe that otherwise this book would have been potentially too short, but it was good. It was good. I learned something new. I learned something new about myself. And I don't know, have you read this book? If yes, let me know in the comments what your love language is. And if not, go and take the quiz, because on his page there is a quiz and it determines what your love language is, which I find super interesting and super relatable. And I was actually a little bit wrong about myself. Throughout the whole book, I started to think about what is my love language, meaning what is a form of showing love to me that I respond to, that makes me feel loved. I wasn't sure about it, and I thought mine could either be words of affirmation, so people telling me nice things, or receiving gifts, so people being thoughtful enough and keeping me in their mind enough to give me a gift that doesn't need to be a lot of money spent. It's more of a, I thought of you and this might be something for you. And the third is physical touch. And that does not necessarily just mean intercourse, it also means just hugging and physically being there. And I wasn't sure. I thought that potentially gift receiving and the element of physical touch would be big in my books, because I do love to give gifts for the exact same reason. I love being able to show my family and my friends that I took some time out of my day out of my weeks, out of my month, to really think about what could bring them joy. And that can be something self-made, that can be a postcard, and sometimes maybe you have seen that in the boxes that I've unboxed, where people have created book boxes especially for me. I think the best and most fabulous item in these boxes was the travel book that Addie made for me, because that probably didn't cost a lot of money, but it cost a lot of time she spent creating something for me, and I felt so loved when she did that. And so I thought that this was probably in this direction, but my love language is actually words of affirmation. So feeling appreciated by somebody telling me something nice. If you leave a comment down below, it is making my day. I will feel loved. So please go and leave a comment down below. Honestly, it literally is my love language if you leave a comment on this video, or any of my videos for that matter. I ranked very highly on words of affirmation is 33%, and then gifts is 27%, and then physical touch is 30%. So they are very close to each other. Please, I do know that I have my address down below, and I have had people asking me for my Amazon wishlist. I'm not sharing that because I do not want you to go out and buy me gifts. I earn enough money to purchase the books and the gifts that I want myself, and I don't want you to spend your hard-earned money on me. I have that address for those who wanted to send me something to unbox that I can't get here, or if you want to send me something self-made or something, that is absolutely fine. But please do not spend your money on me. I appreciate the thought, but I don't want that. I just would feel very bad about taking a gift that you paid for. So don't do that. If you want to support me, it would mean so much more to me if you would, for example, play the videos with an hour-long music on loop or something. That is supporting me much more than sending me a book off Amazon, or just put a comment. That is supporting me much more too. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It changed me for the better. The only thing that really sucked about it is that it made me feel like wanting a partner for once. I felt in the February lovey-dovey mood after reading this, and I really missed having a partner. After all the thoughts about love language, even though I'm very, very happy and content without a partner, and I don't want a partner at the moment, because that would go against the plans that I have for moving into a van and traveling in a van for a while. So I don't have a room in my life for a partner, but that kind of made me feel like I wanted one just for a little while, you know, just for a while. Anyways, let's look at the first sentence. At 30,000 feet, somewhere between Buffalo and Dallas, he put his magazine in his seat pocket, turned in my direction, and asked, "What kind of work do you do?" I gave this 2.5 stars, and I remember that I thought that this sounded like an introduction for somebody who might talk a little condescendingly about his job, who feels very important and above us all. But that was not the case. The way this was written, it was very approachable, very relatable, and I really enjoyed it, and I can really recommend this. And yeah, I'm actually right now actively thinking about how I can figure out what my child's love language is, because he's so closed off. It feels like none of these languages work for him, so I'll have to figure that out because I want to fill his tank. I just finished The Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet. I'm actually in the middle of a live show that is running right there. I loved this so much. This is definitely a 5 out of 5 star. This book has everything that I love. It has some serious topics, but it still feels a little bit lighthearted. We are following a crew on a spaceship, and they are different species. They have different backgrounds, different cultures, and what I really enjoy is that they are seriously different. They have so much difference to them that they feel like it's not just a copy paste of a human being that just has scales or is green. They have different ideas and different backgrounds that really are influencing their beliefs and their core view of the world. And they're still coming together in a beautiful way. And what I love about this especially is that this book can make you think. This book can expand your thought process and your horizon, and it just can expand your acceptance and your ideology and all these things, because this book discusses so many topics about identity, about identification, about things like gender, things like a lot of deep topics, and about how we potentially in our world that already in comparison to hundreds of years ago feels very open and tolerant, how we are still assuming things, and how we are still projecting our worldview and our core values onto other cultures and other people. And this book might help disturb that kind of set mindset, so to speak. It's very hard to explain because I am at a loss for words, because I loved it so much, but it has so many deep topics and it makes you think, but in a very positive, lighthearted way, with lovable characters. I cried, I loved, I was shocked, everything. And I love the technology, I love the world overall and how it's explained. I love all the little tidbits that make up this wonderful world. The world building is wonderful, the writing style is wonderful, everything is wonderful, and I urge you to read it if you haven't read it yet. I loved it so much. Now, the first sentence. This is it. As she woke up in the pod, she remembered 3 things. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I don't think that this comes even close to what I loved about this, and it does not give any impression or anything. So I was not able to really predict from this. So I'm just coming off the live reading sprints, and I have finished Death Prefers Blondes by Caleb Rurik. I really enjoyed this book. I am probably going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about a socialite who is friends with a couple of drag queens, and she is totally during the daytime she's a socialite with bad press and like drunk Margot, etc. And during the night she and her drag friends are actually thieves. They are doing heists, and the heists are becoming more and more complicated, and there's a few layers to it, with a kind of a criminal kind of thriller-ish but in a toned down YA kind of way. Mystery. I did enjoy that. I think that there were a couple of really nice bits and pieces of backstory where we're talking about these drag queens and how they became who they are today and what they've gone through, and some like family history. And I just enjoyed their backstory so much. We have a wonderful family relationship between these type of friends, and it just felt so nice to follow them along. There's a lot of aspects about this book that I thoroughly enjoyed. I did feel like the action scenes were a little bit too much for my brain. I probably would love to follow these action scenes in a movie, but that just might be too much for me in this book version, because I had a little bit of trouble following who does what now, where, when, and it just got a little bit too much for my head. And also one of the things that I felt like is that even though we get the backstory, and absolutely I do absolutely see how these drag queens are drag queens, they are living it, it felt a little bit costumey at some points, and not in the entire way through, but at some points it did feel a little bit like costumey, like they're using it as a costume. I have heard briefly that this is supposed to be a really good representation. I am really looking forward to a discussion that I'm going to have in 5 days with some colleagues of mine who just read this book as well, and I know that one of the people discussing it is very, very active in the drag scene. She's not a drag queen herself, but she's working with a lot of them and friends with a lot of drag queens. So I do feel like I can get some additional feedback and additional layers from her. So I'm really looking forward to this. At this point, this is a 4 to 5 star, a very, very enjoyable read. It was very lighthearted and fun, and then serious at other times. So it was the perfect mixture of that. Some very serious topics, but very fun conversations, very dialogue driven at points, and I really enjoyed it. So the first sentence already gave away the book a little bit, I feel. And I've actually gotten the wrong first sentence because I completely missed that there's a prologue. I thought that the first sentence was, as it turned out, a pissed off drag queen with a grappling hook was a force to be reckoned with. And I'm assuming that I completely knew that it was talking about this book because I don't have a lot of books about drag queens on my shelf. So, and I thought that it would be a 4.5 stars, which is awesome because I feel like I called it, and I think that I probably was absolutely right about my feelings. The writing style that we're seeing in this first sentence follows through the whole book, and actually I feel like Calder is very, very good at writing first sentences for every single chapter. There's a lot of chapters where I'm like, damn, that's a good start into a new chapter, because it's just so much fun how I don't know, writes the first chapters in this book. Chapter 3 starts, a smile could be just as useful as a grappling hook if you knew how to wield it right. I love it. So yeah, definitely a recommendation if you're into this type of story, and a lot more fun than I thought it would be when I bought it. When I bought it, I thought I was getting a little bit more like trashy stuff, but it wasn't. Oh, and by the way, I feel like the relationships, like the romantic relationships, feel so much more real than what I usually read in YA, because it felt like this is not just, oh my god, you're my eternal love forever, but we just feel attraction at times. And just these relationships are, in a weird way, I just feel like they're more real. It's just how I feel, sorry. So I finished Not Hungry. I was surprised by Not Hungry because I did not expect the format of this book. Not Hungry follows the main protagonist who is struggling with an eating disorder, but she is struggling with anorexia or potentially bulimia while still being fat. So people don't necessarily recognize her eating disorder for what it is, because people just assume she is a fat girl on a diet, and not that what she's doing could be critical to her life. This is kind of the story of my last 15 years. Well, not necessarily all of my last 15 years, but quite a lot of this time. So I was able to relate to this topic a lot, and I was actually kind of waiting for somebody to finally represent this area of this illness. And I felt really, really seen. The format in this book is in a prose kind of way. I don't know what the word for it is. I think somebody mentioned it somewhere, but it literally is kind of like a poem, but not a traditional poem. It feels like we are inside this person's head, and I feel like this format is really well done and perfect for getting into the mind of somebody with an illness, a mental illness, like that becomes obsessive with something like eating. I felt really well represented. I was going back and forth between 4 and 5 stars. I really enjoyed it a lot, and it inspired me to write my own story in a similar format, which I will most likely be finishing up and potentially might even be on my channel already. So when I opened up Not Hungry, the first page was already so hard-hitting. It was so intense because I felt so seen for the first time in my life that I literally wanted to cry, and I needed to close it again and start over. But it was really good. It felt a little bit short for me on the relationship part of the book, and it could have been a little bit more of a storyline, or it could have been sold to me as a book full of poems, which it was not. So this is only 4 and not 5 out of 5 stars for that very reason. But I felt seen, and that is something that I have not felt in ages, so I am very appreciative for simply that fact. All right, so the first sentence is, I'm a liar, and I predicted 4.5 stars, and I feel like this is very true to the actual rating that this ended up being, minus I don't know why I chose this rating, and it probably didn't know that I would end up crying because I felt seen, but the rating prediction is correct. The Queen's Alpha, aka Eternal, is the first book in the series, is a book where we follow a princess that is running from her royal kingdom because her brother started murdering her family and she could be next. It is a fantasy series, and it is part of my new series coming in March, so I'm not getting too much into it. But basically, quickly, my thoughts are that the writing style was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I just felt like it was too short. And because the first book that I got on Amazon was book 1, 2, and 3, just reading book 1 felt me a little bit unsatisfied. The book is kind of quirky in a way, and I feel like you need to appreciate all the different types of creatures being thrown together into one story, because I do believe that if you take it too seriously it could become too much, but if you kind of take it with a laughing eye and be like, okay, maybe it's making a little bit fun of the fantasy genre as well, then you might really enjoy this. But make sure that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to see when the full video review on this one comes out in March. So the first sentence was, the girl stood at the window staring bleakly into the world beyond. And I thought that this was going to be a 3.5 star, and I think I'm right. I was between 3 and 4 stars. So this is right. The Last Love Song by Minnie Dark was the Once Upon a Book Club pick for the month of February. It was nice enough. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars because I do feel like it is nicely written overall, but it bored me so much. So we're following 2 protagonists. We're starting out with following a couple, and the couple gets into a... No, that's not true. The couple doesn't get into a disaster, but the woman is a concert pianist and she dies, and the fiancé is grieving her so much, but then this Last Love Song that this concert pianist wrote makes its way across the world, and probably, maybe, potentially we have a love story here, so most likely back to him. We're also following this other girl who has been just getting out of another bad relationship, and well, it all meets and tangles, you know. I felt it was overall quite predictable, but I think the most touching moment was when the very first few chapters felt very rushed to explain the setup, the relationship between the couple. And the only thing when I felt actually emotionally touched was when the tragedy was being described. That really kind of got to me. But other than that, it just fell flat for me. So it's a 3 stars. Very, very well-meaning on my end. The first sentence was, the song began its life not with a fanfare or a crash of cymbals, but instead with a knock at a door. And I put romancy on it. I predicted that right, and I predicted 2.5 stars. And I do think that's fair. That's pretty much how I feel about this book. The 3 stars is because I'm nice. Yeah, this month was not for me, but I'm really looking forward to next month's Once Upon a Book Club pick, because I know that next month is going to be right up my alley, exactly what I want right now. So that's good. Wild Seed by Octavia E. Butler is probably going to be one of my new favorites of all time. This is so good. If you haven't heard about Octavia E. Butler, if you haven't heard about Wild Seed, go pick it up right now. It is classified as science fiction, although at this point, after reading this, I am not 100% sure why it is classified as science fiction. To me, it read a little bit more like historical fantasy. We are starting in 1690, and I think this spans until 1840, just before the Civil War, I believe, 1840. So in this book, we have 2 immortal people meeting each other in Africa, and the one is a male who absorbs, kills other people to then use their body as his vessel in a way, and the other is a shapeshifter, and they're both pretty much immortal. She follows him to the States in trusting and believing that they will, I don't know, he promised her the world and he didn't deliver. Let's put it that way. We have a lot of topics around racism, around slavery, around, I mean, this is before the Civil War. Obviously in the States we do have these topics. This is also a topic about empowerment in my mind, and about being who you are, and about freeing yourself from toxic relationships, and how we potentially are drawn to the wrong things in life, and how we potentially think, hey, if I'm in a relationship with him, I can change him. Well, guess what, girl? You can't. Anyways, the way this was written, it was so freaking good. It just captured me from page 1, and I didn't want it to stop. My biggest question is how this, with this ending and everything, I believe that this is supposed to be an origin story. It was written last in the series, but it comes in a chronicle timeline before. So the slow read along read this first, so I read it first as well. And I'm now absolutely looking forward into diving into the first in the series, which chronologically would be the second, but I have no idea how the ending of this, like where the story picks up. Where do we start? It's not obvious to me, so that's really, I love it. Okay, and by the way, favorite cover alert! I love these covers so much. So the first sentence is: Dora discovered the woman by accident when he went to see what was left of one of his seed villages. And I thought that this was going to be a 3.5 star. Boy, was I wrong. This is a definite 5 star and one of my favorites of all time. So I was wrong. I finished Calder Brand, and I just no. I don't know. Maybe I think that I picked this up on NetGalley at the wrong time because I was in this spur of the moment of February. I feel like I want to read romance, and then like Western, USA. I don't know. It just felt like I was really ready for romance, playing in that area, etc. I wasn't. I need to learn that I am not ready for romance because I roll after I roll after I roll. But I do think it's well written overall. I don't think there's anything wrong with the book. I think it's me. It's completely me. So I was struggling with rating this one because I could have easily given this 3 or 4 stars. And I could have easily given this 2 stars because my enjoyment was like, meh. But technically, it's a good book. Technically, I was a little bit annoyed by some of the things, how they turned out and how it all came together, because I felt like it was a little bit constructed, and some of the relationship parts were just eye-rolly for me. But I believe for somebody who likes romance, it's a really good book. So I shouldn't be judging romance books. I shouldn't even be reading romance books, and I hopefully have learned my lesson here. So, the first sentence in this: Joe Dollarhide stood on the white covered porch of his hilltop home, watching the season's first snowfall coat the land with white. I don't think that I have that this would have told me anything, that this is a romance story. I don't think that this probably showed the writing style that is absolutely fine and nice. There we go. And I predicted a 4 out of 5 stars, and just based on the writing style and objectively, I do think that it deserves a 4 out of 5 stars. And I think I end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads because the book deserves it, and just because I am not a good romance reader, I shouldn't be dragging the rating down. So yeah, I feel like I predicted that right for what it is. I know I look absolutely horrible because I have just been bawling my eyes out, and I have no idea why. I just finished The Girl at the Back of the Bus by Suzette D. Harrison, and I'm definitely giving it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so beautiful. We're following 2 timelines. One in 1955, a 16-year-old black woman overcoming so many struggles and just following how her life was at that time and what challenges she faced. And the other timeline is at present day, a young black woman with similar struggles but in a different way. I don't know how to explain it any differently without getting into spoilers, but it is beautifully written. It's just so touching and beautiful, and touching for so many different reasons than I thought. I just had the feeling that I got so close to the characters and I felt so enthralled by them. The writing style was so beautiful. The characters were so well written that I felt like emotionally part of the family. So when this book was coming to an end, I just needed to cry. No real reason in that book that sparked it. There were so many tiny things that just made me want to cry. So beautiful. I can so recommend this book. And I think this book just simply classifies as historical fiction and following somebody's life, struggling with teenage pregnancy in the 1950s, and so many other things. I don't know. It's just beautiful. Okay, just go read it. Okay. Let's look what the first sentence was. Gal, get those coins in that slot or you ain't going nowhere. I can't find the first sentence. I'm wondering if I forgot it. Yeah, it looks like I have missed this one in my predictions video. That sometimes does happen when I'm trying to write up all of the predictions and have my friend write down the first sentence, so I don't know what that sentence, what book that belongs to, and missing one just happens. So yeah, nothing I can do about that. But yeah, this was a 5 out of 5 star read. Go read it if you enjoy historical fiction, or if you think you could enjoy it. Absolute recommendation on my end. So I'm just coming off my reading sprint and I'm so tired. So bear with me. I was on for what, like 7.5 hours or something. But I enjoy doing these reading sprints and reading with all of you so much, so that's okay. I finished Das Achte Kind, which means the eighth child. I got this from a platform in Germany where you can get review samples just when they're being released, similarly to getting ARCs, and then you review them for free. I had requested this one because it sounded interesting, but I also did not expect to love it as much as I did. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a wonderful story about this son of an immigrant from the Eastern European area, nowadays Croatia, and how he was raised in Germany and how he was battling bad parents, struggling parents, different types of personalities, and all through the 70s, 80s, 90s. He has pretty much 3 different dads that we're referring to. His biological dad, who just leaves him very early on. Then he has a foster dad and a foster mom that he stays with during the week, and then during the weekends he goes to his biological mom, and she has a new boyfriend who is then the stepfather. And everybody has their own package, and most of the adults in this story just have some shit going on that is making this boy's life harder. I believe that this is kind of a memoir because the boy in the story is the exact same name as the author. And so I'm assuming that this is autobiographic. But it was so well written. It felt like a fiction book. It's written as a fiction book. And it's very real. It feels very real, the whole story. It touches on a lot of interesting topics. And I just read it back to back. I mean, during the sprints. Obviously, I did take some breaks to chat during the sprints, but I didn't want to put this down. It was so drawing me in. I just wanted to get through the story. The only thing why this is not getting 5 out of 5 stars, especially in the beginning, this book seemed to be very dialogue driven, and the dialogues did not feel real. They felt very constructed, or very you know, when you think that you remember a dialogue and you just write it down how it could have been, and you're not an author, and it just feels clunky and unreal. And some of the wording just felt so off, like that's not how people speak. But yeah, other than that, it's a wonderful book. I can absolutely recommend it if you like life stories and if you like to follow people and their life and their background and everything. It's very dramatic. It's has a lot of domestic abuse, but it doesn't feel very graphic. I've read books that are a lot more graphic about domestic abuse, but yeah. This was really good. This was really, really good. I enjoyed it. And now I have also found the first sentence in this book. The first sentence is, "My father was dead," and I thought that this was going to be a 3.5 star. I highly underestimated this. I think that the writing style is very dry and very, in a way, unappealing. It's just nothing that would draw me in necessarily, but somehow when it all comes together, it does. And the whole story and everything that was happening was fast-paced enough to not focus so much on the writing style, especially while I was reading this at the same time, or like around it, so to speak. That made it really difficult because An Absolutely Remarkable Thing has a very unique and very fun writing style, and it just couldn't compete. But I think that I predicted a 3.5 stars in this because the writing style just is unexciting. And yeah, that's what it was. It was very unapologetic, very dry, very straightforward, but also very unexciting writing style. But it still drew me in fully. It was the right tone for the right topic and everything. So I can totally recommend it, but the first line did not make it sound as promising as it actually is. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing was absolutely remarkable. I am between 4 and 5 stars. I enjoyed this so much. I think that my favorite thing about this definitely was the writing style. It felt young and fresh and sassy and quirky and all the fun things that I usually don't see lately in books. It's just a very, very fun writing style. It's just a young person speaking to me, you know. It's not an adult narrator. It's a, I don't know. And I do think that the first sentence gave that away as well. I was very close to 5 out of 5 stars. I just think that some of the developments towards the end were not exactly what I wanted to see. But then again, I have no idea what I wanted to see. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, I picked it up without knowing what it is about because I had seen that it's hyped, and then it came up as a traveling book, and well, I read all the hype books as traveling books because traveling books are fun. And when I opened up this one, this already was so filled with comments, like the first few pages, and only 3 people have read it before me, and I was like, damn, okay, here go the comments. So I was absolutely excited. But when I then learned what this book was about, I read the synopsis when I set it up for my TBR because I was curious, and then I couldn't wait to get to it. Pretty much we have a sci-fi meets social media fame and how our personality develops and what social media fame does to a person, to a young person. And then this sci-fi story woven in there. So pretty much what happens is that this young woman, she notices this big statue in New York and takes a video of it and puts it up on YouTube. And when she wakes up, she realizes, whoopsie, I've gone viral, and we noticed that New York isn't the only city with a statue like this. And they soon discover that there's something weird with these statues. They just popped up overnight, and what could they be? And that's the sci-fi part, and it gets really interesting. There is quite a few things that they're trying to figure out, and I think what really hooked me mainly was not the sci-fi part of the story. Although I did enjoy this a little, I think if it would just have been this part, I potentially would have been, well, nah, might be a tiny bit innovative, but it doesn't get me there. But combine it with the writing style that is just so much fun, and combine it with the character development and how fame really changes a person and how the relationships change and everything. And then, oh my gosh, I right at the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to see a love triangle that I "Bleh, bleh, don't give it to me." And then it was avoided. And I was like, yes, yes, no unnecessary relationships. We have romance, we do have different relationship layers. We have friendship, we have love, we have hooking up. So we have all the layers, but it feels like we don't have an unnecessary added dramatizing thing, if you know what I mean. Anyways, I really enjoyed it. I am at a 4.5, so I'm probably going to give it 4.4 stars on Goodreads, but it is a 4.5. It's just that, as I said, the science fiction part of it and the ending. There is a second one out there now, right? So I mean, the second one could bump both up to 5 stars, depending on how the story goes. All right, let's see. As I said, the first sentence definitely absolutely gives the writing style away, and I do have a feeling that I already expected good things from this book because of the writing style. The first sentence is, hold on, there's the long one. Look, I'm aware that you're here for an epic tale of intrigue and mystery and adventure and near death and actual death, but in order to get to that, unless you want to skip to chapter 13, I'm not your boss, you're going to have to deal with the fact that I, April May, in addition to being one of the most important things that had ever happened to human race, am also a woman in her 20s who has made some mistakes. I predicted 5 out of 5 stars because of the writing style, and the writing style did not disappoint. I love this writing style so much, and we got this type of style throughout the whole book, and if it was just for that, I would have given it 5 stars. So I think I was right in my prediction. What do you think? Have you read it? Let me know. Also, this is the last book in February. Why is February such a hard word to say? I don't know. Anyways, it's the last book in February, and I am hereby finishing the wrap-up number 2 for February. And I think that I read quite a good number of books, and I love that I finished this month on such a high note. So many good books that I finished out with. The first half of February was a little bit disappointing with 2 DNF books, but the second half was amazing. I have a few more new favorites. All in all, fantastic reading month, and I'm already really excited for March, and I love the aesthetic of my TBR shelf for this month as well. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet, and put on that notification bell to be notified whenever I upload. And please leave a comment. Please leave a comment. Please leave a comment, because I love comments. Comments are my life. And that's it. Subscribe. Goodbye.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know